Hello, hello, everyone. Somebody just said they're here just in time, so we got somebody here. Good. All right, let's get some intro music so we can get some people to get their alerts, and then we'll chat some archaeology. All right, let's see. It is 6:30 here in the UK. I'm cracking my beer open, and we're gonna just chit chat some archaeology. Um, in about half an hour, Dr. Marijke Stoll is going to be joining us. Um, and she'll join us for about, I don't know, the last 45 minutes or an hour. I am down to go for an hour and a half at 8 p.m. UK. What would that be? 3 p.m. Eastern. I am going to join Rachel for her live stream for Ask An Archaeology Day. I'll put that in the chat. (3 p.m. UK / 8 p.m. EDT. Boom, there's a link for that. So that's the schedule for my next 2 hours while I drink some beer, celebrate the fact that it's the weekend here, and chat some archaeology with my favorite people, which would be all you all, I guess. I see a few questions coming in. So what's going on with me? I've just submitted an article on some of my isotope analysis. I will post the preprint for my patrons on Patreon that are at specialist level and higher, so they can see how an article becomes an article. So I'll do that tomorrow probably. And then, of course, the other big news that's going on is I've started a new live stream series every Sunday, 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do something called Old News. And so we're gonna first play. If you missed it last week, you got to go see it. Here's the clip from what we played last week. Are you tired of all the news? There's just so much going on in the news. Like, look at the size of this ancient Roman shoe. This is what we're here with for Old News with Flint Dibble. We're gonna look at this shoe that apparently perplexes archaeologists. Or does it?
We're not perplexed at all, in fact.
Beyond that, we're going to look at how shifts in the magnetic poles tens of thousands of years ago that ancient humans and Neanderthals adapted to. Or what about the Antikythera device? Is it a computer?
Had to rethink the history of technology completely as a result of this single object.
We're going to look at the shipwreck that it's from. And finally, we're going to check out some of the most amazing boar feasts that ever happened 10,000 years ago in Southwest Asia. Stay tuned for the very first episode of Old News with Flint Dibble. And I'm Flint Dibble. See you soon. So that was episode number 1. It is still there to be seen. I advise anybody that missed it to check it out, because I want to see if this idea of an Old News live stream series every week, where we put in some real good quality interviews and production quality to it, if it'll work. The first one hit my bare minimum of what I would say worked, but the bare minimum, meaning it worked, but I want to see what happens in week number 2. So how many of you are excited for week number 2? Put it in the chat if you're excited for week number 2. If you're excited for week number 2, we just finished the trailer for it. Who wants to see the trailer for Old News episode number 2? Coming Sunday, 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. EDT. Tell me in the chat if you want to see the trailer. You guys are, of course, behind me. Let's see what we get. Who wants to see the trailer? Somebody's got to want to see the trailer. I'm not going to play it unless one of you tells me that you want to see the trailer. Who wants to see the trailer? Come on. You guys have stopped chatting. Is anybody there? Week 2 hype? Uh-oh. We got some super excited? Okay, we're going to do it. We got a bunch of replies. Good. This is what I want to see. Here is the trailer for week number 2, Old News episode 2. Breaking news. Scholars have published the first ever archaeological survey of a comet. The results of this cosmic archaeology will surprise you. Stay tuned. A large genetic study has revealed the very first dogs to be introduced to South America. Let's look into the who, what, where, and why. Was alcohol a driver for the development of complex societies? A big data study from around the world looks at the causal relationship between alcohol and human civilization. Is the drunk hypothesis correct?
Yeah, probably. We found the support for it.
All this and more on Old News with Flint Dibble. I'm Flint Dibble, and I'll see you Sunday. There we go. That is the trailer for episode number 2 of Old News with Flint Dibble. I am very excited for this. We have several different interviews that we've done this time, and we have some really cool stuff that we're going to do. We're going to cover the introduction of dogs to South America. We are going to cover archaeology in space, literally the archaeology on a comet. And that's really cool. One of my friends actually published that paper. So I'm going to be chatting with him and record an interview with him for sure. We also will be discussing the drunk hypothesis, which is whether civilization was built to make alcohol or whether alcohol spurred the development of civilization, and complex society really is a better term. And then, of course, we're going to follow up a little bit on the de-extinction topic with colossal biosciences. And then there's a few other little news stories that we're going to pepper in there. Those are going to be the 4 main ones that we're going to spend some time on. So it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. So you better make sure you tune in. We're going to post the link for it in the trailer probably soon after we air this. And give it a like, give it a thumbs up, help out with the algorithm, give it some comments and stuff like that so that we can make sure we get some views on this, because that's going to be what's needed to drive that kind of program forward, because it's a good amount of work. I mean, it's a lot of fun, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we're doing it for a good cause, which means it's actually being seen, because my goal is to share archaeology with the public, not just talk to a handful of people, which I love you all. Don't get me wrong. That's not my point. But my driver here is to try to to broaden the appeal of archaeology without a doubt. So tell your friends, as Frank J says, tell your friends. We're going to try to start something good here is the goal. Okay, so that's some hype. We have about, my audio's gone. Is my audio gone? Hello. I don't know. Sarah, I think this is an issue with you. My audio is working. I can see the bar moving. So I don't know. But okay, so as you all might know, my patrons and my channel members get the rights to ask me the questions first. So we're going to start off with questions from Patreon and from my channel members, and then we'll move on to general questions from the audience. So let's see what we have. Let's share my screen. I got to remember to do that in advance because I'm an idiot and I forgot to do that in advance. So here we go. Some questions from Patreon and channel members. And this is a plug. Sign up to be a channel member, or especially a patron. Being a patron is better than being a channel member because YouTube takes a huge cut out of it. Okay, first question. I suppose this will be a soul-searching question. I'm a contract archaeologist, mostly ensuring that legal procedures on archaeological sites are followed, alongside participating in and leading excavations. So this is an experienced archaeologist here. However, for the most part, everything is done just so the contract is fulfilled, which makes sense. That's one of the downsides of contract archaeology is you're just doing what needs to be done in order for construction to proceed, and you're not able to pursue any interesting research questions and things like that. So I feel like the research aspect is lost in this branch of the field, despite all the amazing things that we find. This person is unsure if he or she wants to continue in academia to fulfill those research needs, but I don't know of any private enterprises that focus more on the research aspect. While I do enjoy excavation and surveying, something that will never change because that is fun, just doing it to fill a contract does drain the soul bit by bit. I'm thinking of starting my own enterprise or just heading first into academia. I don't want to change my career because I love it so much, even if I'll earn much more as an engineer. What would you do in my situation? This is a difficult question to answer because your situation is more than just what you want to work on, which is the reality of it, because your situation involves potentially family or other situations that are your context dependent. I do think, though, that if your soul is being drained, you're going to want to think of finding something that will fulfill that soul. That could be something like in your spare time, trying to publish, talking to your employer about trying to publish in academic journals some of this material. I do think that there could be advantages to getting, I don't know what degrees you actually have, but if you get a master's or a PhD, not only does that make you more eligible for doing academic type work, but it would increase potentially your ability to dictate your pay and your conditions for employment so that you can do something that is more soul fulfilling within the contract archaeology world. So I would say consider pursuing another degree if that's what you mean. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by going headfirst into academia. Maybe you already have a PhD. I don't know enough about American contract archaeology either to really. I know that different companies do provide different abilities, not abilities, but different opportunities for research. But I'm not sure how much that happens. There is a large gray literature and stuff like that that exists through reports that you can submit. But I would think you need to feed your soul to some degree. So I'd argue to feed your soul, but you want to do so in a way where you hedge your bets career-wise. So I think that that's important. And somebody mentions in the chat that this person could also potentially do meaningful work with tribes, which is definitely true. And you must have tons of connections to sort of tribal historic preservation offices and officers and SHPOs and stuff like that. So you might be able to think through how to do more soul fulfilling work, either in your own free time or by changing the direction of your career just slightly by adding on an extra degree or something like that. Academia itself, by the way, is soul draining in its own way. So don't think that academia is going to necessarily be a panacea. There is a lot of fulfillment to academia. Teaching is very fulfilling. Research is very fulfilling. But also at this time, jobs are disappearing. Research funding is disappearing. And teaching and administration and bureaucracy is becoming much more soul crushing. For various bureaucratic reasons and political reasons. So I would not think that academia is necessarily a panacea, but I do think that getting more degrees could potentially hedge your bets a little bit and give you a range of different opportunities to choose from. So it's something to consider, but you should think through I don't know about starting your own enterprise. That could be interesting. I know nothing about that though, so I cannot really comment on that angle of it. Okay. I hope I answered that reasonably well. Question number 2. What was the impact of the Roman conquest of Greece on its culture, society, and more? What can the archaeological record tell us about Roman period Greece? Did we see any changes in Greek religious rituals or any other aspects of Hellenic culture? This is a question that's near and dear to my knowledge. Need a good swig of beer. So Greece changed a lot from when the Romans conquered it. So Greece under the Romans, it became a very, like much of the Roman Empire, it became a society where there was a lot more have-nots and a very few haves that controlled quite a bit of the means of production, if you will, and the land is what I mean by that. And so what that means is actually the landscape emptied out. It became owned by these really large landowners who owned large numbers of enslaved people. And so most of the people moved to the cities. So Roman Greece became a very urbanized area with the countryside emptying. And there's been lots of surveys that have demonstrated this, and smaller towns and stuff also becoming more abandoned, while larger cities kind of thrive. This helped the Romans control the province as well, because people were concentrated in various areas. And it also obviously supported the very large landowners who became very wealthy and were Romans and Roman politicians and influential in Rome and stuff like that. Because Rome, of course, you could be from anywhere and become a Roman citizen and become part of the apparatus, the elite, let's say. So that was one thing that happened, is the emptying of the countryside, everybody moving to the cities, most people becoming much poorer, except for the uber wealthy that controlled much everything. And they had, of course, the influence of the Romans as well that supported them to do so, to plunder from ordinary people. Which, of course, by the way, is how Roman taxation worked. You didn't pay taxes to the Romans. You paid taxes to some local dude who then paid the Romans. And what the Romans did is they would have bidding for who would collect their taxes. So, you'd have these tax companies, which would be essentially wealthy individuals with hired guards to go collect taxes. And they would make bids for the highest bidder would get the tax contract. They get to squeeze as much tax as they could, and then they pay what they bid for to the Romans. And so it was a pretty brutal system that the Romans ran. So the next question was about religious rituals. Yes, there were a ton of changes in Greek Hellenic religion at this time. For one, the Mediterranean becomes a big place where there is, here, I'll make myself big again. The Mediterranean becomes a very big interconnected place. Obviously, the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, that led to sort of people from all over being able to travel very easily. And so what that meant was the introduction of new religions across the Roman Empire. Particularly, it often went from east to west. And so Egyptian religions were introduced across the Roman Empire, including for example, the cult of Isis, which becomes very popular, or the cult of Mithras, which comes out of the Near East and spreads all over. And so new religions become popular. Another really interesting thing that happens with Greek religion is it kind of becomes a tourist attraction for Romans. So certain cults and things like this, we have these travelers, this travelogue from this guy named Pausanias, and he travels around Greece. He was from Asia Minor, from Turkey, the area of modern Turkey, and he was a Greek. And he traveled around what we would think of as Greece, and he wrote about it, and he wrote about the religion that was going on. And a lot of the religion had become kind of Disneyified. It had become this kind of tourist attraction for people to make these kind of pilgrimages. And, they'd have to pay money and stuff like that. People complained about the money you have to donate when you go to these sanctuaries like at Olympia or Delphi or others like at Oropus, north of Athens. There was this oracle there. And so all of them became Disneyified. And you can see this especially in Sparta. So, we think of like the 300 and this crazy lifestyle that the Spartans lived. To be honest, a lot of our views of Sparta are wrong from what was going on during the period of the 300 Spartans. This is this later impression where things were just so dirty and nasty and harsh and miserable, and everybody was being whipped into obedience to become better soldiers. That became a kind of ritual that was performed for tourists during Roman Greece. So people would ooh and ah at how tough the Spartans would beat their children so that they could grow up and be tough, if you see what I mean. And it became this kind of display of I don't know, just trying to overdo their mythical past, if you will, from the period of the 300 Spartans for Roman audiences that would come by, and they would overplay those rituals, like I said, kind of in a Disneyified sort of way. So Roman Greece was a very different Greece. It was still Greece. Everybody spoke Greek. They were very influential throughout the Roman Empire, but at the same time, it was a different kind of thing, right? And for all these reasons. Okay, next question. Why is it Greco-Roman and not Romano-Greek? That's a good question. I don't really know. One clue might be in the spelling that this is a Roman word. This is from Latin, even Greco. Like the Greeks don't call themselves Greeks. They call themselves Hellenes, as we saw Hellenic culture right here. They called themselves the Hellenes. So this term itself, Greco-Roman, is already Latinified. It's gone through Latin. And as one of my other channel members replied to this, maybe it's also because Greece came before Rome. And therefore, Roman culture, Greek culture has a lens through Roman views on it, as we even just discussed. That's why I put these two questions in this order, so I could sort of bring that up, where our views of Greece are sometimes biased by later Roman sources. And so, yeah, in fact, Glenn brings up that Hadrian did a similar Roman tourist thing through Greece. Yeah, definitely around the same time Pausanias did, a little before, but yeah. So that's probably why. I think it's because it's through this Roman lens that we for a long time saw the Greek world. It's only through sort of recovering more inscriptions and authentic texts and trying to eliminate the bias of later Roman sources and focus on the archaeology and contemporary sources that we've started to reclaim this Hellenic world for what it was. And, you know, it's what I try to do by studying animal bones. I try to look at the ordinary people. That's one of my big goals, right? Okay, we have a few more questions here from my patrons. So what are some items or processes that you have seen or worked with that have helped streamline archaeological research to be faster, to reach other academics and the public? So this is a good question. I would say that preprints are a very big one. 1 second. Peer community. Let me get a website for you. There's this really cool new venture that's been started. It's totally free, run by academics that volunteer their own labor. I'm a recommender for this. It's called Peer Community in Archaeology. This is a new way to publish your results, where you get it reviewed and recommended, and the peer reviews, the recommendations, and the reviews become public record. And it's not a journal. It's just a website. And you can then afterwards publish it in a journal. And so this helps streamline the process, and it helps make everything more open access. It's very similar to eLife, but it's better managed and it's not commercial. And so the managing board, Alain Kefelec, is named here. He's sometimes in the chat. So Alain, if you're here, I'm plugging your peer community in archaeology venture. And there's a number of other really good people here. Matthew Collins is someone else who I know who's awesome. And some really good people who have put this together. And they try to we all try to volunteer our time to recommend various preprints for publication or for reading, and to be able to get the conversation going. So I'd say that's probably the newest venture in terms of trying to get stuff out there faster, in a more streamlined and transparent fashion, with it being freely available for the public and for other academics. I really like that venture. In general, though, I'd say publishing open access is something that a lot of grants are moving towards. And so I think that's really important to make things faster and more accessible. But yeah, that's probably about it, because this is really about dissemination of research for the public and whatnot. So I think the major new thing is preprints, which are becoming more common, and open access, and then this peer community in venture, I think, is a really good one that's freely available. And I plan on submitting probably my next article to it. I need to think on which one it would be, but I do want to submit one to there. Okay. We have a lot of questions coming in as I answer stuff. You guys should save some questions for a second when I can get to the stuff in here. So I just found out your dad has his own Wikipedia article, and after reading it, he sounds like a total badass. Thank you. My dad was a total badass. I agree. His work stretches from Morocco all the way to Iran. That's incredible. Could you tell us more about his work in Iran? Specifically, the Wikipedia page mentions his study of stone tools in the Zagros Mountains. Could you provide some insight into that? Yeah, so this is my dad's Wikipedia page right here. You can see it's quite awesome. All his publications are listed and all this kind of stuff in honor of him after he passed. Let's just pull up an image of my dad so that we have a few fun pictures while we talk about him. Dad, you're very missed. Very, very missed. In fact, tomorrow is his birthday. So, Dad, this one's for you. Happy birthday. What would this be? This would be your 74th birthday, man. Fuck me. It's been so long since I've seen you. My dad's work in Iran. I don't think my dad ever went to Iran to do any work, but he studied material that had been excavated in the Zagros Mountains for his PhD, actually. It was one of the assemblages that he studied for his PhD. And it was stored at the University of Arizona from an earlier excavation by his PhD supervisor, Art Jelnek. And so he studied that material. And actually, it was his study of this material that created this really groundbreaking conclusion that can be applied to stone tools across the world. I've explained this before, but let me explain it again. You might think, for example, let me make myself big again. Oh, wait, let me get something that's behind me. For a long time, people thought that something like this and something like this were different tools. They look different, right? And you could even throw in something like this, or even something like this. And there was this huge debate called the Binford Boards debate between Louis Binford and Francois Boards. And I'll talk about both of them in detail later on this channel. They both have done research that have influenced my own stuff and my dad's stuff and whatnot. And so this debate was over, like, if you find different percentages of different stone tools. One second. Let's get some more stone tools. So, like, you know, if 50% of your assemblage looks like this and 30% like this and 20% like this, versus a different site where 50% looks like this and 20% like this and 30% like this, what does it mean? What does it mean for the people who were there? Does it mean that they were different cultures, for example, because different cultures made different kinds of tools? That was Francois Boards' explanation, that when you look at all these sites and the percentages of different kinds of tools, that means different kinds of cultures. Louis Binford, on the other hand, said, no, man. What this means is it's a different use for the site. A butchery site or a hunting site is going to have more of these. Well, a living site will have more of these. So it's not different cultures. It's how the site is being used. Okay, both of these could be true, and this was a big debate. And in fact, now these days, we think that both of them could be true. It just depends on the context. But there's a third answer that my dad came up with by studying those stone tools from the Zagros mountain range. And what that is that sometimes when we call two different things, two different kinds of tools, we're tricking ourselves, because stone tools are like pencils. You have to constantly sharpen them. And so you start off with something like this, you whack off a few pieces, and then you end up with something like this. This gets dull, so you sharpen it, you whack off a few small pieces, and then you end up with something like this. This gets dull, so you whack off a few more pieces, and you end up with something like this, right? And so they're not necessarily different artifacts. They're the same artifact along a continuum. It's called the reduction theory. And my dad was very famous for this. It's one of the reasons why he's so famous, despite, in addition to excavating all kinds of sites and other things. And so it was a different answer to the Binford Boards debate. And so that was one of the things that came out of that study of stone tools from the Zagros mountain ranges in Iran. And if you saw Old News episode 1, we covered one of those sites in Zagros with a boar feast. So it's a really cool area. And I hope to do more on the Zagros in the future with some of my dad's former colleagues. Okay. We have one more question, then we'll move to the questions from the audience, and Marijke should be joining us soon too. I enjoyed the Graham Hancock series and work, but I also like science and I know what's real. My question is around clarity. From your point of view, you're saying there is nothing from an evidence point of view to back up claims of what Hancock is proposing. That doesn't mean it's impossible. It means that it hasn't been found so far. Or have you found stuff that completely proves him wrong? I hope that makes sense. I enjoy your work. Thanks. I would say that we have lots of evidence that proves Graham Hancock wrong. We just had a debate on this with David Miano a couple days ago on the channel. Let me pull up the link for that. Sorry. And so I actually think that Graham Hancock is not just it's not that we just lack evidence, it's that we have evidence against it. The evidence against it is all of our evidence for how agriculture begins, and the fact that not that there is no evidence for agriculture in the Ice Age, but all the evidence we have shows there was no evidence for agriculture in the Ice Age. And so I see that, and most of my colleagues see that as evidence against it. In fact, David Miano agrees that it's evidence against it. The fact that we have archaeology everywhere around the world, in every single desert, every single rainforest, and along every single coastline, including Ice Age coastlines, tells me there's no room for some sort of large, global, advanced civilization during the Ice Age. And that is evidence against it. Other pieces of evidence against it include the history of the idea. The idea started in the 19th century, and every single aspect of the idea has been discredited for over 150 years. But the idea doesn't disappear. It just constantly morphs into something that's fun and attractive for the contemporary audience. And the history of the idea itself tells me that there's no legs to this. It's not an idea that's built upon looking at evidence. It's an idea that's built upon, 1 second, Marijke, 1 second. It's an idea that's built upon wanting it to be right rather than there being any evidence or reason for it. So in my mind, I see Graham Hancock's idea as impossible. It is literally an impossible idea, and there's more evidence against it, particularly little things that he talks about. But is the stream dead? No, it's just for you, Sean, I think. So I think that the idea is absolutely impossible. Okay, that ends all the questions from my Patreon. Let's introduce Dr. Marijke Stoll.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's going pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I just, one warning, this is an 8-mammal household. I have 2 puppies and 2 resident cats and 3 fosters. And right now, all the kittens are just going crazy. So if you occasionally see me go, ow, it's because one of them just attacked me with their claws.
There we go.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So I have a question for you before we move on to some audience questions.
Sure.
So right now we have 2 different intro musics that we're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know which one you like better. And I want to know which one the audience likes better. So everybody, as soon as we're done playing both of these, vote for which of these intro theme songs you like better. And we'll see what Marijke says. So we got this one.
The classic.
The classic.
I like the
yeah, exactly. Maybe. So okay, so that's the original one that we played
Yeah.
for a couple months, and then this is the new one that we've been playing for the last 2 months. So that's the second one. The first one is AI generated by R.M. Brown. The second one is not AI generated. It's a song written by my friend Hussein Öztürk, who's an archaeologist based in Athens. And then, of course, we illustrated it with photos of myself. So what's your thoughts?
Okay, well, my thoughts are, and I'm going to have to disagree with someone in the chat who said it's a porn theme, because honestly, to me, it just sounds some like really good, deep down Delta blues.
Yeah,
And
that's the style.
yeah, and
He loves playing Delta blues.
but also, like you said, he was Greek or Turkish?
He's Turkish, but he lives in
Turkish.
Greece. His partner's
Okay.
Bulgarian. His child is
Yeah.
Greek.
I have to say, having listened to and just, I have this album of psychedelic funk Turkish music from the 1970s, and that bass note has that like sort of Turkish flair to it. So that's why I was just like, oh, that makes sense. And I like the countdown too. And I have to say, it to borrow some Gen Z terms, it feels more archaeology coded. You know, like I could see like, and I think I have like been on an archaeological dig where it's like right after a long day of work, we're all sitting around drinking beer, just listening to music, doing work, and that is definitely stuff we would put on. The first one, lots of fun, but yeah, to me it feels like I'm more in a club.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what we'll probably do is alternate our music is my goal, but I see a lot more votes for the second one in general. So I will probably, but I have gotten comments for the first one to come back. So, so we'll try to mix it up a little bit. I figured I'd ping the audience when we had enough people here.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you're gonna switch it up, let me talk to a friend of mine who does electro cumbia music. So
do it. Yeah. In fact, I just saw
bringing a little Latin America here.
Somebody said they could write a song that's not AI. We Are DNA. So I'll have to look them up on We Are DNA. Leave a post on my last the community post chat, and we'll communicate, and you can send me a song. I'd love to play some other songs and mix it up a little bit. Okay, that makes sense. So Marijke, did you get a chance to see my first episode of Old News?
No, I have not, and I do want to apologize. So, and I promise I will. I have been knee deep in putting together a huge grant proposal.
No worries, no worries. Do you want to see my trailer for episode 2?
Yes, I would love to.
All right. These guys, some of these guys have already seen it, so they're going to be upset. But there's new people here, including Marijke, so I got to play it one other time. This is Sunday, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. Eastern. Yeah. Breaking news. Scholars have published the first ever archaeological survey of a comet. The results of this cosmic archaeology will surprise you. Stay tuned. A large genetic study has revealed the very first dogs to be introduced to South America. Let's look into the who, what, where, and why. Was alcohol a driver for the development of complex societies? A big data study from around the world looks at the causal relationship between alcohol and human civilization. Is the drunk hypothesis correct?
Yeah, probably. We found the support for it.
All this and more on Old News with Flint Dibble. I'm Flint Dibble, and I'll see you Sunday. There we go.
Yeah, that looks really awesome. And in fact, to your point about ancient alcohol and like, did that spread, help facilitate complex society? I think we've talked about this before, that the same thing, we see the same thing with corn, right? It takes a while for the cobs to reach the size that they do and to become a sustainable source of food. What we think instead is that why it spread was because of the sugary stalks.
Yeah.
And then there would be this, and then where we do find like a lot of the sugary stalks going around is in places where we do also find a lot of early production of corn beer or chicha.
Yeah, there you go. So it is an early driver. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that as well. I have some good, interesting things to introduce for that on Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good call. All right, so I'm gonna hit you with a question because we see a question for you already.
Sure.
Here we go. Dr. Stoll, how far back in time do you think we'll push the peopling of the Americas in the next few decades?
Well, I think we are kind of hitting that upper limit, I think. Just given how long it would have taken for people, like if you're thinking about Homo sapiens, right? And when they were leaving a continent out of Africa and then making their way across Asia and Austronesia, and we see people arriving 60,000, like 40,000 years ago, right? So the idea that people have been showing up in the Americas 25,000 years ago, I think fits right along with that evidence. We've been talking for a while, and we've been finding a lot more stronger evidence for it. It's the coastal hypothesis, right? Or the Kelp Highway.
The Kelp Highway, yeah. I talked about that on Joe Rogan, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we also see a lot of so much more like earlier dates in South America rather than North America, because if you think about it, North America, like a large part of it was covered under ice. South America wasn't covered so much. So it makes sense why we would see earlier dates there. So I do think that, like, seeing dates like 30,000 or 25,000 is not going to be impossible. I don't think we're necessarily going to find like anything as early as Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Simply just because of the environments that people would have been moving through during the sort of the last gas with ice age. But I think we're definitely like getting around to that upper limit around like 25,000, 30,000. I don't think we'll be pushing it much further than that, just given what we know about the migrations of Homo sapiens groups around the upper Paleolithic. Sorry.
Upper Paleolithic, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. I think, that last point in particular, I think makes a lot of sense. And what we know in Asia and Siberia and Alaska as well makes a lot of sense.
Yes, of course, yeah.
I just republished my Jennifer Raff interview on Spotify. And so I was looking through some of it to generate some shorts. And so, yeah, same idea. I think it matches what you're talking about. But then again, it could certainly go a little earlier. But how much earlier? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, again, like, I don't see anything earlier than like Australia. And I would think even like maybe 40,000 would be pushing it a lot. Because again, like people are traveling that way, and it does take some time. Hunter-gatherer groups are not going to travel that many or cover that much distance, and like they're not going to like go all the way to Alaska in just like one generation, right? They're going to continually explore the environments that they're in, which is why it's also a slow process and it takes a while.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay, so let's see. We have a few more interesting questions here. We were talking about the intros. Somebody asked about the giant pot at 4342. Let me see if I can find it. This one. Okay. So this is from 2011, this photo.
Yeah.
So this is what we call a pithos. It would be embedded in the ground, and they would have stored really almost anything in it. Probably something like grains, but it could also, depending on whether they coated it with pitch or tar, it could be used for holding liquid like wine or olive oil or something like that. So it's a giant storage vessel. You could think of it as a storage pit, but it's actually like ceramic, so it can actually, it's not going to have as the other issues. It's more sealed and protected since it's inside a giant vessel. So it's called a pithos in Greek. In the Roman times, it would be called a dolium. This photo, I need to look up what date it's from and which museum specifically, but if I'm remembering, it's from near Acharnae, so northwest Greece, but I could be wrong on that, which specific museum this is. This is from 2011, so it's 14 friggin' years ago. And so, yeah. So that's what that is. A great giant storage vessel. And these storage vessels were really common in houses and wealthy people's residences throughout the Greco-Roman world. So yeah, that is what that is. Let's see. All right. We have thoughts on Heinrich Schliemann. What are your thoughts on Heinrich Schliemann?
Oh, I would have to look who that up is real quick. Who is Heinrich Schliemann?
Heinrich Schliemann's the guy who excavated Troy and Mycenae.
Okay. Well,
he's like back in like the 19th century. He was an independent guy who was self-made.
Yes.
He made his own wealth, and and then being wealthy, he was like, I'm gonna get. He's the guy who's credited with finding Troy, though he didn't find Troy.
Yeah.
It was people before him that found Troy. And to be honest, somebody asked, this will first of all, Heinrich Schliemann dynamited through Troy, so he's a terrible example of an archaeologist. He also ruined at the Athenian skyline by destroying the Frankish tower on the Acropolis. And he believed that when he dug really deep in Troy, that he found these live toads down there. And he's like, there's no way a toad could get down here. So what that means is this toad has been alive since the time of Achilles. And that's what he thought in 1880 or whatever it was. And he was the predecessor to the idea that the Nazis ended up adopting, that the Aryans and the swastikas were part of a global large civilization, or maybe he didn't think global, he thought semi-global. So I'm not a big fan of Heinrich Schliemann, if you can't tell.
Yeah, if you once you said, "Oh, he's the guy who discovered Troy," like right away, I was like, one of the 19th century antiquarians who did a lot of damage, found interesting stuff. But so again, like that's more old, like just for the audience at home, like that's more old world. A lot of my stuff is a new world, but we certainly have similar figures who are not, but again, not as destructive. I think when you see archaeology taking off in Mexico. There is kind of like a very different approach to it. I think partly because a lot of when it was becoming formalized, Mexicans were involved, and when people were exploring, archaeology was formalizing as a field, whereas Heinrich predates a lot of we shouldn't blow shit up as we're looking for it. So what are my thoughts on him? Yeah, he's a 19th century antiquarian who found interesting things, like a lot of them did, but they were terrible archaeologists.
Yeah. All right.
I did see a question. Someone had asked, was there more than one migration?
Okay. I didn't see that.
Yeah. So we do know that, just based on genetic evidence, that there were multiple migrations, and we can even see that in the archaeological evidence as well. But for example, we know that the Inuit peoples were some of the last groups to arrive, right? And we also know that I think there was also some other question was, why did ancient Mongolians move to the Americas and become Native Americans? Well, ancient Mongolians, that's not that's a hard thing to claim because we can't project ethnicity back into the past. Also, yes, there were Asiatic groups from that area that did migrate to North America, but we also have examples of other peoples as well, mostly the Inuit and the group closely related to the Anhui or the Inuit in I'm saying that wrong, in Japan. So yeah, but there's multiple migrations. Well, why did people move? Why did Homo erectus leave Africa? Looking for
people move around.
people move around, and it's kind of like the same story that we see repeated often is we're moving around, we're hunters and gatherers, and we're looking for niches to exploit. Sometimes maybe things get crowded, and we're like, okay, what's over that hill? And I think also, just as a species, we're very curious. We always want to see what's over that hill. And I think if anyone has ever done survey before, they know that feeling. It's just like, oh, it's the end of the day, you're exhausted. It's still going to take you about 3 hours to go back, but that might be something interesting right over there. Why don't we go check it out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Here, wait. Somebody gave me a super thanks and asked for a shout out. -18, I'm a big fan of your work. I made a video involving you on my channel. My question to you is how much money for you to shout it out? Well, you gave me $5 and I'm shouting it out. So I guess I'm a cheap date. But I don't see your video, man. This is your channel, and somebody said I was typing. I was trying to find your video about me. I typed in like -18 Flint Dibble, and I just see other stuff. So I'm not sure what video it is. So yeah, so you'll have to share what your video is in some other context. But thank you for the $5. I'm sorry if that shout out was not good enough. So let's see. What other fun questions do we have here? I have a quick one that I want to answer. It's an easy one. Were ancient Greek chickens smaller than today? Yes, by a whole fuck ton. Modern chickens became really big after World War II. Right around that time in the 40s and 50s, broiler chickens were developed. They were bred. It wasn't genetic engineering or anything. And so traditional chickens were much smaller. Some places still have traditional chicken breeds, like Albania, where my partner is from. They don't even call traditional chicken breeds chickens. They call them zogshati, which means village birds. And they are so small that one hungry person could easily eat an entire chicken. And they are much, much tastier. Much tastier and better for you.
Yeah, same with turkeys. Turkeys
Yeah.
definitely are a lot bigger. If you go down to like Oaxaca, you'll actually see the turkeys are a little smaller, but if you see wild turkeys, yeah, wild turkeys are a lot thinner and a lot smaller.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Let's see. We have an interesting comment, which is this person would love to see the two of us on Time Team. That
would be
cool.
fun.
That would be a lot of fun. We'd have to
Yeah.
figure out how to get in touch with them or something. I don't really know anybody on Time Team. I know people all over, but even though I'm in the UK, I actually don't know too many people that do British archaeology. It's kind of weird. It is what it is. Let's see. Here, this is for you, More. Have you ever seen the documentary about the Appaloosa horse coming to America from Central Europe before Columbus? Could it be used to date the arrival of humans?
I have not seen that documentary, but I would highly question it. Based on the archaeological evidence, we do not see horses predating Columbus or the arrival of the Spanish. It would have had to have been brought over by maybe obviously the Vikings, because they came here at some point. But obviously the Vikings didn't bring horses, or if they did, they didn't stick around. So I would highly question that documentary. Plus, where we would see horses first, if it was from, we see first in Mexico, because they arrived with the Spanish.
Okay.
And it's modern horses as well, very distinct from the horses that were here during the Ice Age.
1 second. Somebody's saying Time Team is on Blue Sky, and I'm saying they are on Blue Sky, but they don't follow me back. So what am I supposed to do? They don't like me. I like them. I don't know what else to say. I think they do a great job. But yeah, I need to figure out how to talk with them.
There was a question about fibers in the Americas. I don't know if you see that one. It was just above the horse one.
Okay. Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
What fibers were used for spinning in the Americas? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so obviously a big one is cotton, and that's actually we find cotton both in North America and in South America. And then outside of that, when you're talking about fibers, it's going to be very specific to the local environment. So I know around like the Lake Titicaca Basin. There is a grass there that's really strong, and in fact, they use it to make nets and boats and even platforms and even houses, especially like for the community of people who live like right on the lake. And in Mesoamerica, where I work, and especially in Oaxaca, they make a lot of they used to make a lot of fibers out of maguey or agave. So they would take the leaves and use a process to break it down and make fibers out of that. And in fact, I worked at a site called El Palmillo, which was particularly known for producing maguey fibers, anything from nets to actual cloths, during the Classic period, and that was their main economic activity. And in fact, throughout the site, we find tons and tons and tons of spindle whorls. And as
Very
you
cool.
go from like the bottom of the hill, where the common people are, they're like kind of really rough for producing rough fibers. And then as you go up, they get finer because the elites were producing much finer fibers for like cloths.
Okay. Very, very cool. Yes. So I have a question for me to answer. Where'd it go? Sorry. I'm going to focus on the second question here, but at what point does the king's list, this is the Egyptian king's list, enter into myth territory? We have a lot of different Egyptian king's lists. Most of them don't enter into the myth territory at all, but a few of them go and talk about the era of the gods, and that's when it enters the myth territory. If there's any king's lists that are pre-first dynasty, that is myth, and it would have been seen as myth by the Egyptians as well because they're naming their deities. It would not have been seen in the same way as history. But more importantly, I want to talk about, wasn't Troy a myth just a couple of years ago? I think you mean back in Schliemann's time. No, Troy was never a myth. Troy was mentioned in real histories. Alexander the Great visited Troy. The first Roman emperor, Augustus Caesar, visited Troy. Hadrian, the Roman emperor, visited Troy. During the Christian period, Troy was the seat of a bishopric until like 1300 AD, 1400 AD. So we have historical records of Troy up until 1300, 1400 AD when it was finally abandoned. I could be wrong on the specific century, but it's around that time when it's finally abandoned. And so practically nobody ever thought of Troy as a myth. What is a myth, potentially, is the Trojan War. That is a myth. That's like Batman being set in New York City, Gotham, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a story, a myth, let's say, that's set in a real place. And so nobody ever saw Troy as a myth. And we need to dispel this idea that Troy was seen as a myth until Schliemann or Frank Calvert, or really the Turks, locals, discovered the site of Hisarlik, which is what it's actually called in Turkish. And so it was never a myth. It was known in the 19th, 18th, 17th centuries as a real place that had real history, not just mythology. So I wanted to make sure to get that question answered. Sorry, one more question for me, which is, when do we get Flint Dibble merch? We have some ideas for merch. We need to find time to pull it together. Hopefully this fall, in time for the holidays, we'll have a merch store open, and we have some really good ideas for it. So we got to work on that because we want to make sure we do that.
And I think we should also mention that even though the Trojan War may be a myth, I would say more like it's mythic, because it's probably based on actual stories and wars.
I don't know about that.
Well,
the people excavating Troy have found no evidence of a kind of war.
No evidence of war.
Yeah.
It could have also been transposed onto other things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing when you're dealing with myths is that, especially when they're so old, is that they've been told and retold and retold. And the Trojan War has already been an oral tradition for a long time before it was even written down.
Yes.
And
exactly. In fact, that's the thing. We date the Trojan War to 1200 BC because traditionally we thought it was the end of the Bronze Age type thing. That's what early scholars thought. But now we actually understand that it was based off an oral tradition that went probably as far back as 1600 BC. Yeah. So really, we have not much evidence for the war itself. What we have is these myths that we have evidence for, and then the city itself and the other cities that were part of this as being real places. So I want to take a pause from questions for a second, and do a quick plug for my friend's channel, the bad boy of science, Sam Gregson. He just released a video. He's a physicist, and we did a conversation live 7-8 months ago, something like that, last November, on carbon-14. He just released a new video on the discovery of carbon-14 and how it happened, and he's doing a series on carbon-14. So let's check out a quick clip.
They were convinced that they had finally discovered and isolated carbon-14. However, much to their astonishment, carbon-14 was not an ephemeral, fleeting, vanishingly short-lived isotope. The half-life of carbon-14, the time it takes for half of a given amount of carbon-14 to decay, appeared to be anywhere from 1,000 to 100,000 years. This amazing realization shed light on the reason for the negative results of previous years. Scientists had not been able to capture the radioactive decay of carbon-14, not because it was so incredibly fast, but because it occurred so incredibly slowly. They simply hadn't waited long enough. They hadn't had enough patience. They hadn't watched carbon-14 for long enough. Carbon-14 radioactive decays were hiding in the background count all along. They were hiding in plain sight. Carbon-14 decayed far more slowly than anyone had ever anticipated. A new, incredibly long-lived radioactive isotope of carbon had been found, one that could provide the key to unlocking the mysteries of biological pathways and the chemical underpinnings of life. For more, be scientific and bad, and find me over on YouTube.
There we go. I wanted to give a quick plug.
Very
so
cool.
You've been attacked by your cats.
Yes, I'm being it. Yeah, so I had to. Well, at least one of them, Luigi Sangre de Montifalco. It was being a naughty boy, so I put him in the bedroom because this is like I can't take it anymore.
So, and since I see Rachel right here, I do want to also quickly plug where I'm going to be in half an hour. In half an hour, I'm going to head to a different Ask an Archaeologist Day live stream on Inside Archaeology. And let's put the link in here. So when we shut this down in half an hour, I'm going to quickly join there. So if you want to keep following the journey of me drinking beer and talking archaeology on a Friday evening, that's what we got going on. So let's see. Did you see any questions you wanted to answer?
Yeah. So someone asked about Oaxaca cheese and who invented it. So it was actually So it was actually first made by Dominican monks.
Okay.
So in sort of the early colonial history of Mexico, it was the Jesuits who first came over and established a lot of the churches. And at some point, there was a big disagreement between the Jesuits and the Spanish crown. They got kicked out, and they were replaced by the Dominicans. And the Dominicans were really big in Oaxaca. And actually, there's the whole Dominican route that you can go on, where you can see some really beautiful, just 17th century and 18th century churches. But basically, these Dominican monks were trying to imitate buffalo mozzarella, the famous mozzarella cheese that's specially for the Pope. And so they were trying to make that, and they came up with Oaxacan cheese. So that's why it's kind of similar, and it has that similar property of being like stretchy and great for pizzas and great for quesadillas. But yeah, so it's kind of like
I don't know if I've ever had Oaxacan cheese. Now I want to have it. I mean, it must have maybe at a restaurant or something. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely should. It's really, really delicious. Let's see, you're in the UK. I'll see if I can maybe get some sent, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to Oaxaca.
Can see.
Yeah,
when you're in Oaxaca next. So we're going to have Marijke on the channel, by the way, for an extended talk on Oaxacan archaeology on August 8th while she is in Oaxaca. So stay tuned for some really cool stuff on that. My turn, and then we'll get to you again.
Yeah.
Has Joe ever apologized to me? I should have booted this up. I don't know where it is. The answer is no, sort of, maybe. He did after he saw my tweets, or somebody showed him my tweets about him dissing me while I'm fighting stage 4 cancer. He did state on his show while talking to some comedians that he wanted to apologize to me for saying that nasty shit about me, and that he'd forgotten that I had cancer. but he's not ever reached out to actually apologize to me. So he might want to, but that's not the same thing as actually apologizing to me. And as you might have noticed from my video, I have asked him to go back on to defend my good name, and he has not replied. So so I take that as a complete lack of apology and a complete snubbing. So it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say I don't know, but I don't know. Thank you for the super chat, Mr. Welshmoon. Were boomerangs common in ancient time for hunting birds, or is it purely an Australian phenomenon? Seems like a useful tech for ancient humans. I can't think of any boomerangs from the
Yeah.
areas I study.
None of the areas I study either.
So I don't know. That doesn't mean that there aren't boomerang technologies elsewhere, but I am not sure. And you'd have to probably trust Wikipedia over me making something up. Let's see. I thought I saw one for you somewhere.
Yeah, there's
Oh, here we
two.
go. From Honduras to Panama.
Yeah, so actually, so they're asking, does the Mayan culture extend further south of Copan? I know it extends down into El Salvador, right? And that's sort of like the most southern extent we get of Mayan culture. There's also some Nahuatl language groups in Central America as well. Now, the person to ask about Central America would be John Hoops. I think I'm finally saying that right, John Hoops.
John Hoops, yeah. That's how you want to say it. I always said Hoops until and even after he corrected me, I kept saying Hoops. By the way, John Hoops will be on the live stream on Rachel's Inside Archaeology channel coming up soon.
Yeah,
just so everybody knows.
Yeah, sorry, I'm playing with this crochet hook. But yeah, so that is definitely the guy to ask about that. As far as large urban centers or large urban cultures similar to the Maya, not quite, but you would have had still very complex societies. I know one of the things that Central American societies are most famous for is like tunga or tumba, which is that special mix of gold and I think copper or silver that they make that is really beautiful and was produced using a very complex technique that we didn't rediscover until the 20th century. But yeah, there's like unfortunately, there's not as much research and focus in Central American archaeology as there should be. It's kind of sort of like a neglected area. And given that how much power the United States has as a scholarly society that outputs so much into research into other places, we don't have enough people working in Central America as we should. But again, you're still going to see a lot of similar things that you see in the rest of the Americas: complex societies, extensive trade networks, complex pantheons and ideologies, and maize farming. And a lot of manioc farming, but also again, like a lot of these areas are very jungle, a lot of dense jungle, mountain regions that sometimes are hard to penetrate and to study. And I think with the addition of more LiDAR research in Central America, we'll actually also be discovering a lot more sites as well.
That makes sense. So to answer the earlier question about boomerangs, we've had help in the chat. So there are these throwing sticks shown on the tomb of Nebumun, which could represent something like a boomerang. It's for hunting. And then there's something like a boomerang also found, the world's oldest boomerang apparently found in a Polish cave, though the BBC says it doesn't actually come back. So it's great for throwing at a bird. But then again, I imagine if you actually hit your target, it's not coming back anyway. It's not like Zelda where you throw your boomerang and then it comes back after you hit the Ganon's creatures or whatever. And so there are some boomerang-like things found in Poland and Egypt at least, and I would not be surprised if elsewhere.
There was also a question about tobacco.
Yeah,
about the archaeology. The archaeology of tobacco in Mesoamerica. So tobacco actually originates in Bolivia, in South America, and we start seeing its cultivation beginning around like 5,000 to 3,000 BCE. It reaches Mesoamerica a lot later, like not until about probably the 6th century, 5th century BCE. So Yeah. So, and then again, like I don't know who is actually focusing specifically on that. Probably somewhere in South America. As far as I mean, tobacco comes up, and whenever we do chemical residues, when we're testing ceramics, or sometimes what we do, well, like if we know that a patio or plaza has been used for food preparation, you'll test that, and tobacco will show up. As far as someone focusing exclusively on that, I don't think there's as much study as there is with maize, unfortunately.
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
was there any kind of lace in Mesoamerica?
Yeah.
No, not really. I mean, lace is a very specific thing, obviously. Was there very fine weaving? Yes, with the cotton. Yeah, there's very like beautiful weaving, and in fact, if you look at sort of indigenous weaving technologies today, you can see how beautiful a lot of the stuff they produce. And Oaxaca too. Someone said their co-worker is from Oaxaca, and that they're a really awesome person. They are. They are. I love Oaxacans.
Rachel mentions there's 20 throwing sticks found in King Tut's tomb. And somebody had asked, is King Tut possibly Alexander the Great? And the answer is definitely not. That idea is completely wrong. We have writings inside King Tut's tomb. We know who it was. And as somebody else pointed out, they're the wrong ages. King Tut is like 18, 20 years old, and 18, and Alexander died at age 32. So
were they even contemporaries?
No, they're off by like 1,000 years.
That's what I thought. I'm just like, how
they're nowhere near each other in time. The artifacts we have in King Tut's tomb clearly dated to 1,000 years earlier. There is zero. All right, since I just had that argument with David Miano, there is 0.00000000001% chance that King Tut is Alexander the Great, which means there's no chance.
I think we would have to like bring in like, you know, the reincarnation and argue it on a theological level, like, but on a scientific level, no.
Yeah. And I do want to point out, everybody's bringing up throwing sticks. I was taking the boomerang somewhat literally, meaning it's something that's curved or angled and it will come back. Obviously, the world's oldest boomerang doesn't come back. So throwing sticks, yes, are extremely common in all kinds of cultures. Somebody else above mentioned atlatls, for example. I mean, you know, it's I mean, a throwing stick is kind of like a spear, except it whacks you because it doesn't have a point. You know,
I think we're being literal here, right? For me, I thought the same thing. A boomerang should come back, right?
And apparently boomerangs don't come back even in Australia. So
really, is that a Hollywood myth?
Look, I've never been to Australia. I've never gotten a boomerang to come back, but I just figured that was my own shitty skill.
Yeah. I've seen people get them back. I've seen like some Aboriginal content creators like trying out different boomerangs or doing different things with them. And then, but it also depends on the boomerang. So the really heavy ones, you don't actually want those to come back, and you don't want to catch them because trying to catch them, you'll break yourself with the force.
It tells me that some boomerangs are designed to return to the thrower, while others are not.
The smaller ones are. Yeah,
the ones in Zelda are, so they come back even if you hit the enemies. So some are returning and some are not, but the returning ones are mainly used for recreation.
Yeah, that's what the Aboriginal content creator pointed out, was that it just depends on the size of it, and that actually they have different sizes for different purposes. So like the really big, massive one that you don't want to catch and you don't want to come back because it'll take your head off, that one's for like taking out kangaroos.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. So we covered Tutankhamun and Alexander the Great. Oh, yeah, I pulled up an image for this one. So when they made those pointy at the bottom ceramic containers, they would need a special place to have them standing. You'd like to know more about them. 1 second. I did pull up an image. The question is, which tab is it in? There we go. So they're called amphorae. Let me put that in the chat. They're called amphora is the name of the type of thing. And then they could be stacked in sort of wooden type hole type things like these. They were also designed to be stacked up like this. And what they're really for, these are transport vessels. So these are rarely going to be in your house. They're meant to ship one product from one place to another. And the sort of some of these, like right here, some of them are actually designed to be laid on their side and stacked up. So different ones would be designed to stack in different ways. So these were not really frequently designed. Here's an image of some as cargo, for example, on a ship. And so they're not super designed for keeping in your own house. But you could, of course, embed them sort of in the soil or lean them against a wall and then be able to stack stuff. We do sometimes find them repurposed. This is one that, for example, would be designed to lie on its side, and you'd stack up 20, 50 of them or whatever within the hold of a ship. And so that's actually what these amphora are for. They're for transporting olive oil, fish sauce, wine, grain, all kinds of other things over the sea usually. So that's how they be used. And they were designed as pointy because they weren't meant to be placed flat on the ground, if that makes any sense. Let's see. Sage wall in Montana is a natural feature. It is not archaeological. It's not a structure. It is a natural feature. Geologists have studied it. If you see YouTubers saying otherwise, remember they are just YouTubers with no experience in geology or archaeology or otherwise. And they're trying to make money off of you because they have more than 120 people watching them.
Yeah.
They have 50,000 people watching them that makes them money. While my goal here is to share educational resources. Very different.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually have a joke word that we use when we're doing survey, and this is like a mix of Spanish and indigenous, but it's called piedrocate, and it's when a stone breaks off in a way that it looks like a shirt, which they call tepalcate, right? And so I just want to say and reiterate that sometimes rocks break in a way or erode in a way that makes it look like a structure. The site where I want to work, one of the difficulties that we have is that the particular geology that exists there, sometimes things like you'll look and you'll see like, oh my God, that's a platform. You walk over, no, it's a natural feature. It's just the way the rock is broken. This happens a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is the Mayan crystal skulls all forgery? First of all, they were Aztec skulls, not Mayan.
So they're not even Aztec. Don't correct that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But the Aztec crystal skulls are indeed all a forgery. They only appeared suddenly at that World Fair, and when we examine them closely, we can tell that they were made with modern tools. So, prior to the arrival of the Spanish, you don't have metal tools in Mesoamerica. What they used was they would have used lithics, and they also would have used other ceramics in order to shape or do anything, right? So the crystal, yes, we do see people working with crystals. We do see people working with gems and fine stones, but they were not making those crystal skulls.
So there's a comment here that I want to respond to, which is about self-educators. I have zero problem with people that are self-educated, but a self-educator is somebody who actually goes and reads rather than just going and seeing shit and making shit up about their opinion on stuff. Someone who actually reads what other educated people have said and then builds upon that base of knowledge is someone who is self-educated. Someone like Jimmy Corsetti is not self-educated in any way. He's not even educated at all, self or otherwise. And so that's my thoughts on self-educators. I love self-educated people as long as they go and do the real research and they have respect for other people who are also educated. People who lack respect and decide to go the lazy way, they're not self-educated. They're just grifters.
I think I also have to make a point is that at a certain point in your academic career, especially when you are pursuing a PhD, you are largely self-educated because you are pursuing your research interests. We're not all reading the same thing. For example, I work a lot on frontier theory. I work with that a lot because where I work in Mesoamerica is considered to be a frontier region. Flint, I don't think you've read a lot of stuff on frontier theory and frontier processes, right? So I've had to and because of where I work, I've had to self-educate myself on that. I've had to self-educate because I work in mountains and I work with GIS. I've had to self-educate on human locomotion. I've had to self-educate on slopes and energy costs and GIS, right? Whereas Flint, you've had to self-educate on animal bones and like animal and like
I
anatomy,
mean, no, that stuff I was
right?
more
Zoo
taught.
archaeology. Oh, you're taught, okay, taught, but I mean, just like, but certain things, right? It's like, but you're taught that,
Yes,
but
no,
it
I've
was
done
because
obviously a
you
lot of
pursued that interest.
self-education on various things, because by the time you get your
Yeah.
PhD, you are the world expert
Mhm.
in what you wrote your dissertation on. Your supervisors do not
Yeah.
know nearly as much as you on that specific topic. They can guide you on how to
Yeah.
contextualize it and the methods and things like that. But the specific topic that you
Yeah.
research, that you are the world
Yeah.
expert on that. And this is why when I see online people saying, well, you got a PhD, you just repeat what your supervisor says. Not at all. You might use their methods and apply it.
Yeah.
You might take some of their theories
Yeah.
and test them, but you are the expert that is telling your supervisor, who will then copy what you say.
My advisor works in the Maya region. My advisor does not work at ball games. My dissertation was on ball games.
Yeah,
and
my
ball
advisor
courts in
was a
Oaxaca.
ceramicist.
My advisor knows fuck all about sports, like the anthropology of sports. He knows fuck all about like half the shit that was in my dissertation. He doesn't know it. But what he knows, he's educated as a critical thinker, and so he can evaluate what I'm saying and know that I'm not doing bullshit. So yeah, I mean that's so the point with like that is that, you know, there's nothing wrong with being self-educated. It's just self-education is not sitting there and watching just YouTube videos and then assuming that therefore you know as much as someone who has actually sat down, done the work, excavated, surveyed, worked with sources, talked to people, analyzed,
done their
objects.
library time.
Difference.
Done their library time. So this is for you, Marijke, but you're not going to answer it, because this is something we're going to talk about on August 8th. Is it true blood from sacrifices was used to water crops in times of drought? We will save that question. We will table it.
Yes.
Remember this question, Marijke, so that we can talk about it on August 8th.
I will. Yes, I'm glad, because this is gonna go. This is gonna work so well for that. Maybe we'll even open with that question. That is a great.
Write it down right now. Somebody, we can come back and screenshot it, because this is the very end, so that's easy.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you have contacts with folks that are recreating and playing Mayan ball games today?
So, as far as the Maya region goes, no, I do not. Who I do have contacts with are people in Oaxaca who play the autochthonous game there, which is known as Pelota Mixteca or Mixtec ball. So, saying the Mesoamerican ball game is kind of like a misnomer, because in fact there are actually multiple types of ball games, and when we're thinking of the Maya one, you're thinking of the hip one. And there are people who have been working on not recreating it so much, but like working with the societies there to host the games and stuff. There's actually a society in Mexico, FIDAT, or the Federación de Deportes y Juegos. I'm gonna have to remember it, but it's sort of like the Federation of sports and autochthonous sports and games in Mexico. And if you go to their website, they have a list of all the states where they have organizations where they play traditional ball games. So in Oaxaca, I know a lot of people who play Pelota Mixteca. And there's 3 types, and the one that's most popular is the one that's played with a glove. It's this huge glove. I'll bring pictures with me on August 8th when we talk about it. Yeah, I'll even bring some video too, so you can see how it's played. So those are most of my contacts. If you want to actually see an autochthonous ball game in the United States, you can go out to San Francisco and to Fresno, where there's Oaxacan migrants. And they'll play Pelota Mixteca on Sundays. And sometimes, like, I don't know what's happened since the pandemic, because I know a lot of stuff shut down during the pandemic. I don't know if it's been, like, if restarted. But I do know that, in Fresno and in San Diego, you could actually go and watch a Pelota Mixteca game.
Very cool. I'm pulling up Pablo's comment, because he says that Curly practices the ball game, perhaps. if remember correctly. And I want to note that I'm also
Yeah.
going to have Curly on, Curly Tlapoyawa, one of the co-hosts of Tales from Atlantis. He is coming on
Yeah.
middle August. I think it's August 16th. So we're going to get a bunch of American archaeology coming on this channel very soon.
Yeah. And I should also point out that lacrosse is based on a North American ball game, stickball. Totally, it's called by different names, but you can actually go and see like the Creek or the Choctaw Iroquois groups. You can actually go and see them play as well. So indigenous ball games are also still played in the Americas. It's just like not the Mesoamerican one. It's different. It's the one. It's more like the lacrosse style. But yeah, you can actually still see people play ball games in the United States.
All right, I think we're gonna have to call this because I gotta head over to Rachel's live stream on Inside Archaeology.
Yeah.
Let me put that in the chat.
And yeah, and I gotta get.
You gotta get back to a grant. Write in something for me on there.
Yes, I will.
And no, we don't do the same research at all. Other than that, it was a pleasure, everybody. We got to answer a bunch of questions.
Yes.
And
yes, and I want to say come back August 8th. I'll be on there, and also I will talk about this more on August 8th. But I do also have a fundraiser on GoFundMe to support an international conference with
you have the link? Put it in the private
a Mexican
chat.
and. I will. Yeah, I'll try to get it and put it in the private chat right now before you go. If it takes me too long, I will do it August 8th. But yes, come out and support. Oh, here we go.
Here, I'll play the trailer. Old News episode 2 Sunday.
Yes.
I'll play the trailer while she finds the link. Breaking news.
Yes,
scholars have published the first ever archaeological survey of a comet. The results of this cosmic archaeology will surprise you. Stay tuned. A large genetic study has revealed the very first dogs to be introduced to South America. Let's look into the who, what, where, and why. Was alcohol a driver for the development of complex societies? A big data study from around the world looks at the causal relationship between alcohol and human civilization. Is the drunk hypothesis correct?
Yeah, probably. We found the support for it.
All this and more on Old News with Flint Dibble. I'm Flint Dibble, and I'll see you Sunday. So what's the fundraiser for? I missed that. And
oh yeah, so it's so I am part of a scholarly collective that I organize called Dialogos in Oaxaca Archaeology, which brings together archaeologists from Mexico, United States, and Canada, all who work in Oaxaca, so that we can have dialogue between us. And we're having our first ever conference. You know, we've been hosting symposiums at other one we've ever organized, and we're holding a fundraiser so that we can help support people, because a lot of the people who are giving presentations are students or people who do not have full-time positions, right? So, and early career scholars. So it's a way of supporting people during particular early parts of their career, and also to bring people together. And the best thing is it's open to the public. So it's also a way for us to disseminate archaeological knowledge to the people. Everyone says we try to gatekeep. We're not gatekeeping. We're saying come on in and learn from us. So if you can, like, $1, $2, whatever, but if you can help support us and support this conference, then we have success, and we'll keep doing it year after year after year.
Support students. Thank you all. Dr. Marijke, you're awesome.
Thank you.
See you all later. We get to play my last R.M. Brown songs.
Yes. See you guys this week.
Tickle, tickle, giggles, squiggle, jiggle, fiddle, flint on Dibble. Rhymes and riddles, tickle, tickle, giggles, squiggle, jiggle, fiddle, dibble, 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 dibble. Flint on Dibble.
R.M. Brown makes
Dibble, Flint on Dibble.
I know, it's so awesome.